You've been asking questions on my travel videos, and it's about time that I answer these questions. So let's go ahead and answer some questions. First one is Hernani on my Stop with the Flags on Backpacks video. If I put the flag of Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and North Korea, would criminals still mess with me? I'm thinking you'll probably end up having more problems with that. I know that was a joke question, but hey, I'm going to answer it regardless. All right, and Johnny Quinlan, I hope I pronounced that right, on the how to get a free upgrade on a flight video says, most people say in order to upgrade, you need to be loyal to one airline and its partners and fly a lot. But I like that you guys gave us tips that aren't complicated and easy to execute. I always dress nice, and I have been upgraded on overseas flights twice for looking good. That is definitely a thing. Thanks for the tips. So it's not really a question, but the one thing that I will address here is, yeah, absolutely. If you fly a lot on let's say, if it's Star Alliance, if it's One World, if it's SkyTeam, and you fly a frequent amount of points, you get that status that's good across all of the airlines. So on Star Alliance, it's called Star Alliance Gold. You get that, and it's indicated in your profile. So yeah, definitely that does help. Flying with the same alliance is a great idea, or coalition of airlines, not alliance. And we'll all go together to block white. All right, and Cam Darlington says, Canadians wear flags to show people they aren't American. Showing a Canadian flag is a one-way ticket to being treated well in places that Americans may find discrimination for past events. In China, being white is enough to attract attention. Nobody cares about the patch on your bag. When they see blonde hair and you speak English fluently, even children point to you and say bai, which is white in Chinese. So Cam, I think that, I'm not sure if you are yourself Canadian or not, but I find that Americans, they wrongfully get a bad rap, especially from Canadian tourists. There were a few people, I think about 10, 15 years ago, that traveled with, the Canadian flags on their backpack, and they were American. Most of the time when I'm traveling and I see an American couple or American family or whatever, they're usually pretty kind. They're usually pretty kind, well spoken, and I gotta say, most of the Americans I met are nicer than Canadians I know. I think nice Canadians is a myth. Honestly, yeah, there are some Canadians that are really nice, but without getting too much into the problems of Canada, I will say that I think you're right. The fact, if you're somebody that's Caucasian and you're traveling to, a place like China, yes, you are immediately going to stick out like a sore thumb. But there still is, I think, just putting that target on your back needlessly. I don't think the benefit is really outweighing any potential dangers that you might have. So that's my opinion. If you still feel comfortable having that Canadian flag, I don't really know where you think that Canadians would get treated better than Americans. I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments, or let anybody else who might have any ideas why know in the comments. I'd love to hear it.
Okay.
You good?
No, I'm good, but Jay, okay, Jeff. Don't be.
All right, so Omar asks on the how to get a free upgrade on a flight, says, don't get it. Why wouldn't they upgrade the oversold seats? Yeah, they normally do upgrade oversold seats. Like, they're not gonna, it's not that the person who's in, like, because you're not in an oversold seat, right? You're an oversold passenger. And instead of putting you in front, they'll put one of their high-paying passengers in front. That's just, I think, good business sense. Somebody who is standby for a seat generally has not paid very much for a ticket. There are certain extreme circumstances where that might not be true, but for the most part, if you find yourself on standby, it's because you didn't reserve your seat ahead of time, and not only that, you probably bought a fare that didn't allow you to reserve your seat, but one of the stipulations where you're kind of bottom of the line because of the fare class. So giving those people the type of upgrades that you're talking about would just mean that it encourages the behavior of, hey, I bought this cheapo ticket and then I got upgraded. So it doesn't create a good use case for the business and say, okay, we're reinforcing this behavior that we don't really want to encourage. We want people to buy expensive tickets, right? And that would be the main reason why. Okay, and Krista Barley asks on the video, Air Canada upgrade bidding explained. Do you have to bid for all passengers on a reservation? I would like to upgrade 2 out of the 5. So yes, you would have to bid for each person. So the bidding system will vary from airline to airline, but that's one of the things that you can, when you either do it online, or you can always call your airline just to find out how to maneuver that. Most of the time you can split reservations. They're usually called PNRs. You can split those up into multiple groups. So if you wanted just 2 people out of the 5, put them in a separate file. I do believe you have to call in for that. Most airlines, you have to do that through the contact center. Whether there's any fees or anything to do that will be at the discretion of the airline, and it will vary. I don't think Air Canada does charge for that type of thing. Something to think about, though. Del Pasado on my how to travel between Montreal and Toronto video asks, I'm landing in Montreal airport, but my destination is Toronto. Is there a bus from Montreal airports to Toronto? Thanks. There is a Greyhound bus. I don't know if it leaves directly out of Trudeau, but this is not going to be like a 5-10 minute bus ride. You're talking about 5 hours in the bus. You are probably better off from the airport taking Via Rail. There is a train that goes past the Montreal airport and goes right into downtown to Union Station in Toronto. So that's where you want to be. Or you could always just book a hopper flight to go from Montreal to Toronto. You can either do it through Porter, Air Canada, or WestJet. Does WestJet fly? They must fly to Toronto from Montreal. But that's one thing you really need to realize, is that Montreal and Toronto aren't really that close together. If this was Europe, there could be like, another country separating both cities. So the distance in the distance in Canada is something that a lot of people underestimate. So just make sure that's the case when you're planning your trip between Montreal and Toronto. Another comment on our Air Canada upgrading bidding explained is Busty Sal said, I did this twice and I worked both times with only a $200 bid. That's amazing. I'm really happy you were able to get it for $200. Love to know where exactly you were flying to. That's also going to dictate the cost because of the competition and everything. But there you go. You can upgrade as little as $200. So it's something that if you're willing to pay more money, I would certainly just throw your hat in the ring. All right, YouTube commented on my new drone law in Canada, which was for March 2017. So this is about over a year old, but this comment's about, a few weeks ago. He says, and thank you first of all, great video. So thank you. I just said thank you twice. Would there be any issues using the DJI Tello since I cannot take my Mavic Air to Calgary due to many restrictions of flying drone weighing over 250 grams? So here's the thing with drone laws in Canada right now. There's a lot of movement going on in terms of laws and regulations and the finer details of really what's going on. So one of the things that you want to do is before taking any drone, you want to make sure with Canada Travel Agency. It's not Travel Agency. What's it called? I'll put the name somewhere. I'm blanking on what it's called, but if you reach out to them on Twitter, they should usually hit you back with some details. They're pretty active with responding. It's Canadian Ministry of Transport. I think that's what it is. Anyways, that's one of the things that you should really think of doing. And really, for anybody that's traveling anywhere, really, it's not one thing to just check, 6-7 months before your trip. You booked your flight maybe a year in advance. You checked. You're like, okay, my drone laws are good. I'm good to go. And it kind of applies to most, irregular laws that you might encounter while traveling, not just in Canada. But I'll check maybe a month before and then a week before, and definitely, I'd say 2 days before your flight, 2 days before your trip starts, recheck the laws, especially for drones, and just see what the current state is, because if not, you could get your drone confiscated. I know there's some countries in the world that will straight out take your drone as soon as you enter customs, and they don't give it back. So do be careful about that. Okay, and yet another comment on the how to get a free upgrade on a flight. And that's one of my, I think that's my most popular video, so it's not surprising that most of my questions are coming from there. Kari Schmidt says, finally an agent talking about this. All I can find are videos of passengers, so I don't really believe how it works. Thanks for the tips, and I just have one question. How often do flights get oversold? That's a really good question. One of the things that I have realized traveling in the States, United seems to oversell like 95% of their flights. I have seen very few flights of any significance. When I say significance, I'm talking about like 3+ hours that are not oversold. If you're traveling internationally, it really depends on the region, depends on the policy. Air Canada, I don't find oversells their flights all that much. WestJet doesn't sell oversell a single flight. That's a Canadian-based airline. If you are not aware, their big shtick is they don't oversell. So they have a 0% oversell. I haven't seen that many airlines not oversell on a regular basis, especially when you're talking about leaving out of the United States. The big players like American, United, Delta, they will oversell most of their continental flights. There's just high demand. Their international flights, which cost a bit more, they don't get oversold as much. But when I say as much, I mean by a significant number of people. Where, on a continental flight, you might, and by continental, I mean continental United States, not Continental, the defunct airline that merged with United. I'm talking about within the continental United States. Those flights get oversold more regularly versus the slightly more expensive international flights. And when I say, and again, to bring back to my point, I'm talking about the number of passengers. So you might still have oversell, but whereas, a flight going from New York to Miami, New York, Austin, you're going to have, let's say, 10 people oversold that are waiting for a seat. And on a flight going, let's say, Atlanta to Paris, you might have 3-4 people. So when I used to do flights I did flights for 5 years. I boarded flights. I would have about, let's say, one flight every 2-3 shifts. I have an 8-hour shift, sometimes more. And those flights were usually going to the United States. The ones international, so if you're flying in the summer and you're going to Europe, I'd say every flight pretty much was oversold, with the exception of an irregular operating day. So on a random Tuesday, for some reason in August. Trying to recall all the patterns, and really, if you're flying in the summer, I would say expect your flight to be oversold. Just a good gauge of what you should be expecting when arriving to the airport. And that's really important to pre-reserve a seat, pre-book your seat, pay the extra money, book your seat. You will be guaranteed to get on the flight, but there still could be other circumstances that would happen that bump you off. One of the things that could happen is if the airplane gets downgraded, so down gauge. What would then happen is, let's say you're flying an Airbus 777, can hold X number of people, let's just say 200 people, and you get downgraded to an Airbus, 320, which would hold, let's say, 150. Those aren't the accurate numbers. I'm just giving you an example. So obviously there's 50 less seats on the airplane. There could be 1 or 2 people out of that bunch that already had reserved a seat, and now they are on standby. And furthermore, just because you reserve a seat, so let's say you reserve 15F, doesn't mean you're going to get 15F. If there, again, was an equipment change and the aircraft that now has a different configuration, you could get moved into another seat. That's just one of the things that happens. And Muna Omar on my Emirates Airlines hiring process, what to expect video asks, Hi, good video. I heard that Emirates requests you to do a presentation in the interview. Do you remember if you had done one and what was the topic? So, Muna, I actually had to do a full-on. So when I got brought into the head office, they sat me down in a small room with a few computers, and they had me write a whole presentation or a whole strategy, based on a certain campaign. After that campaign was written up, I think I had like 50 minutes, maybe half an hour to write it up, start to like from scratch. They then took my test or whatever you want to call it, my strategy. They had me go back into the waiting area where there's like 50 other people waiting for different jobs. And from there, they reviewed my stuff. And at that point, they deemed that, this is actually a pretty good strategy. So we're going to bring him into the room again and have a meeting based around this, and I want you to present this. So they brought me in. I didn't go anywhere. Flew all the way to Dubai for this. Didn't leave the building yet. And I did my presentation. Why I chose this strategy, why I think it's going to be an effective strategy, what are some of the pitfalls, pretty much a regular business case, as if you're pitching it to a VP or something. And after that, we kind of had a Q&A session based around that. And once they kind of found that I was a fit, they went further on into the interview, talking about my personality traits, talking about my strengths, my weaknesses. Then we got to the regular interview where if you've been in any interview, you've been in that interview. And that was pretty much it. It was a pretty straightforward process. The whole interview process from when I got back into the room to when I left was about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. And then I was told within 2 days that I got the job. If you've watched that video, as you know, I didn't take the job. Since that time, since I've actually made this video, a lot's happened in my life in terms of my career, professionally, and where I'm at now. And I'm not sure if passing on the job was the right choice. I'm not as confident anymore. I don't regret anything that the choices that I made since then. And I do realize that if I took this job and I came back to Canada after a year, I would have been severely in debt. I would have been broke because, the Canadian government takes like half of your earnings, and most of my earnings there, and that's earnings like, your gross earnings. It doesn't matter how much you're coming back into the country with. Most of my money there would have went into paying for, lodging, an apartment. So coming back to Canada, I probably would have been broke. It would have cost me a lot of money just to go work there. I would have worked there for free, essentially. I would have certainly had a lot of experience. I don't know if I would have stayed that long. Like when I look back in Dubai, I'm not really sure how much I enjoy it, or I would have enjoyed it rather. In the small time that I was there, I was like, okay, it was nice, but a place to live, I'm not sure it would have been for me. Anyways, that's kind of more just anecdotal, right? Based off of just kind of wandered. Anyways, that's the video. I think we're gonna stop it there. I've got tons more questions from you. I will get to them. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a line. You can also hit me up on Twitter if you'd like. Follow me there. Really, thanks for watching this video, and until next time, safe travels.